Live. All right, and we are live. Well, hello everyone. It's Katrine with Aromatherapists in Business, and I'm just looking over here, and I've got Michelle Gilbert here today, which is so super exciting. We have been in contact a while ago, and we were talking about doing this little coffee chat. But welcome, Michelle. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself just quickly, maybe to everyone who doesn't know you? And I bet a lot of people actually do know you, but please go ahead.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to chatting and getting to know some of you out there. As Katrine said, I am Michelle Gilbert. I'm a certified clinical aromatherapist. I am primarily an educator and coach. I kind of work in the intersection of education in aromatherapy for anybody across the board, whether it's a practitioner, a maker, a formulator, massage therapist, anybody who's using essential oils professionally. So I visit education, but I also work with some business coaching and kind of the geeky stuff that goes behind it, building stronger systems, getting organized. Feeling confident is a big part of what I do, because I know that imposter syndrome and never feeling like you quite know enough, or you go down a rabbit hole, it kind of is built into what we do. And so in the middle of all of those things seems to be an area where a lot of people need a lot of support. And that's what I'm here to provide. While I'm not working with my own clients, I am an educator at one of the more well-known aromatherapy institutes that is where some of you might recognize me from.
Yeah, well, and that's where I recognize you from. And yeah, you have been correcting my papers and everything else. And it was just such thorough and beautiful work that I had to somehow get back in touch with you. And here we are, and it's so beautiful, really. So thank you for the introduction.
Well, there wasn't much to correct. It was a pleasure working with you. I'm glad to be here, and I love what you've created, because there's definitely a need for it.
Yeah, and that is exactly what I've been thinking about. I created this Aromatherapist in Business group last year, where we all work somehow in silos. It seems like we all work to get clients in, especially when we are just finishing up school, and then what is the next step? And so I wanted to create like a platform basically where we can feel comfortable as aromatherapists, where there's not the pressure of having competition looking over our shoulders necessarily, but rather to be helpful and really answer questions. And I think that's where we actually came to maybe initiate this coffee chat, and this is our very first one, and if it goes well, we might continue it. But we put a poll out last week about 3 questions, and the poll came back, and I'm gonna just read what the answer was, or not the answer, but what we said was why we think we need to take another course and another class before we start working as aromatherapists. And I'm guilty of that firsthand, because it took me a long time. I thought I need to have this section of books first before I can even start thinking about a business. And I was looking at all the courses, and I was thinking about becoming right away clinical aromatherapist after doing the certification, and then go on and on and on. And the next one was cosmetic formulations as well, before I can even talk about it. And I know you owned, or you had a business, a soap making business as well. So you really know the ins and outs, and you have been in business for a very long time now, as well as an educator, as well as owning your business. But basically, we're going to talk about this today, and that is really, really exciting. So when people start right after they graduate as an aromatherapist, as a certified aromatherapist from any of the schools, they basically have the need to maybe go further. And why do you think that actually is? Why do you think people feel not ready after the first training, or any training maybe?
No, it's a great question. I think that there are a few reasons. And the first thing I would want to say is I, as an educator, absolutely believe in getting as much education as you can, always. The question to me is, how do you balance it with knowing when to move forward? So I get concerned about the people who, and I've done this myself, go down the education rabbit hole and don't think that, like you said, a bookshelf full of all the books and you having to read them all and having to take all the courses and fill yourself up to the point of saturation before you feel like you can get out there and do anything. And so to me, it's a balance issue. I can't speak for any of the aromatherapy schools out there. That would not be my, I don't have the position to do that. But what I've observed is it's our field is education heavy. It's the nature of it. It is a lifelong learning path. And I think it's a lot like a garden. And as I talk, that metaphor will probably show up a lot. It has to be tended to constantly. It changes. We learn new things in research and experience all the time. And I think because there's so much of an experiential aspect, I think that we feel like we can get more education and kind of gobble up all this education at first to make up for maybe what we could get through experience as well. And I think it's important to remember that work is education. When we get out in the field, that is part of our education, but we need a very, very solid base to do that. And that may differ for everybody. For some people, maybe an ACP is sufficient to get out there and know where you want to be and how you want to practice. For others, they might need to take a few more courses first. Like if you have a shortcoming, maybe in anatomy and physiology, or you were brand new to essential oils when you started your ACP, that would be a sign that maybe you might want to do a little bit more training first. I think that, like I said, keeping it in balance and maybe completing your ACP, knowing your comfort zone of what you can offer and you feel comfortable offering, just challenging yourself a little bit, just going to that edge for yourself is a great idea. And I think that there are a lot of ways to start small. But what I don't want to see people doing is like taking the course carousel and just,
Yes.
know.
Yes, absolutely. There are just a few comments coming in actually from Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Jackie as well. I was looking yet at another course as well, Tracy said, and so many rabbit holes, laughing out loud, Jackie said. So yeah. I think we really do see this, that once we're finished, we do look at another course. But I mean, how does one know when they are ready to go out? What do you think is like maybe a sign where you say, okay, enough is enough, and maybe, give it a try at least, get your first client or get your first product out? What could be a sign somebody might see in themselves? And that's so hard anyway, to always observe yourself. But do you have maybe a suggestion or an idea what this could be?
Sure. I can look at this from both like a straight up business angle and then maybe a deeper holistic angle. From the business angle, I would say if you know three things, your ideal client or your niche or however you want to describe it, their exact need and a very clear description of who they are and what problems they have and how you as a practitioner, not just as aromatherapy, but how you as a practitioner can meet it. I think that's a good time to start getting yourself out there. And that can take time. If we want to take all the aromatherapy classes and all these different areas, it can help you find that, but don't lose sight of your goal in that regard. So that would be like my businessy answer. On a holistic side of things, I think it's really a gut check issue. Are you feeling pushed to get out there or are you feeling pulled? And those are really, really different. And I think that they show up differently for everybody. So that's my favorite way of saying it. I think when the classes are a shiny object versus something like, let's go back to the garden. If you're over full with, you think you should probably put more flowers in it, but at the same time, you haven't really cultivated the ones that are there. That's maybe take a look at, what you want your garden to look like.
It is really beautiful, because the fact is that our brains can only take so much information in, and we only have so much time to really digest all the courses, and as great as they might seem. And you mentioned on your website as well, you're part of many, many groups, and what do you really get out of them? And sometimes it's maybe easier to say or to do, or not easier, but maybe that's what we should do, is actually take things away from the garden to prosper others, because we know it can overshadow, and I like the analogy. Some of the plants can totally overshadow the other ones.
And how do you know which plants are in your garden, meaning who are you here to serve, unless you give yourself that breathing room? We have to empty out. I got to that point myself. I kind of hit burnout, and I took all the courses and realized, I think this is another sign too. I realized that I knew exactly what a certain expert had to say about something, but I didn't know what I had to say about it. And yes, we have to get to that point where we even understand the concepts. But if we're not doing any output at all, and we're just doing all this input, you'll burn out and you really will lose yourself.
Absolutely.
So even you can just do baby steps to get yourself out there. It doesn't mean you've launched your business and you have to represent the entire field of aromatherapy. It means that you can start finding your footing. As long as you know that you're doing that from a solid educational base, and absolutely continue with education. But I think it, and I've started, this isn't really a pitch for one of my products, but it's relevant here. I've created some printables and more are to come, but one of them is a monthly planner meant to help people align their business goals and their education goals, because they can go hand in hand. And I think that they should go hand in hand. So that's a really valuable way to look at it too.
Yeah, very true. And let me just see, Tracy just said, after ACP, I felt knowledgeable, but I didn't feel ready to consult. And that's why I keep buying the books and looking at classes. I don't see many aromatherapists who are successful as consultants versus retail or teaching. Now, that is an interesting point. Mm-hmm. Do you have maybe, and I don't see many aromatherapists who are successful as consultants versus retail or teaching. I would think, Tracy, do you mean versus retail or teaching in terms of they are more successful basically getting a product out? And I think maybe consultancies, or being a consultant, that's often way more quiet and happening in the background sometimes than getting a product out. But I'm not sure.
And I think we need to define success too,
Right.
I think I'm going to call them practitioners. What you say is consultants, same thing. You do it because you love it, but I think you should do everything because you love everything. They're all acts of service.
Absolutely. Yes.
I was primarily a practitioner for a little while. I think it's a great experience. It wasn't my particular calling, but when it's your calling, you will know. And what I have noticed in general about practitioners is I think the imposter syndrome can really show up there. I think it's easy to spend all this time formulating a retail product line and getting it perfect, and you can get everything, your ducks in a row, and launch it once it's finished. But it's really, really different to work one-on-one with a client, supporting them, and learning as you go, because you don't get that tweaking time, and you've got like no pressure, right? There's a person there that you're supporting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's scary. But if you feel the call, you feel the call. And I think sometimes a massage therapist or an energy worker it may be an easier transition for them. It is certainly possible to be successful that way. In the United States and in some other countries, there are challenges with scope of practice and what we can say. But it's, once you find your voice in that, it's absolutely possible. The path just looks a little bit different. And I really think that anybody in the field needs, I'm going to say the B word. I think you need a brand. And I think you need to know who you are. And it goes back to what I said. Who is your client? What is their exact need? And how do you meet it? Like, you can put yourself out there as an aromatherapy consultant and practitioner and custom blending for people. But if you don't narrow in on, maybe do you work with a certain health condition, or like, what is your, like, describe that, give her a name, him or her a name.
Yeah.
What are their struggles? What are their health issues? What are you best equipped? Is it something that you've worked with in your life that you are very familiar with? You have to narrow it down. And the more you do that, and the more you understand and hone in your message and your marketing and getting out there, becomes easier, because people know you're the go-to for this particular issue. So
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree that the message actually becomes more clear, and not only for yourself but also for the receiving end. Because if you're out there with 10 different products, and I have experienced that myself, I'm guilty of that too, it is really hard to position yourself in the market, and also to become the expert as well, because the market is so full, and especially now during these times we see more and more online things popping up left and right, and it becomes quickly an overcrowded market. But what I liked as well, what you mentioned, Michelle, is that getting yourself out there, it is part of the work you have to do almost as well in order to learn and get the other side, because we now know how to learn and how to go to uh, how to blend, maybe, or hopefully we know after a course how to blend. But the entire business side, there's a whole different persona coming out when you go out into the world of business, and you have to get to know yourself, and you almost need to probably, yeah, you almost need the same amount of time to get yourself out into the world as you were teaching or learning aromatherapy, because that is a huge aspect of the entire business. It's a holistic approach in this case too, to get to know a client, to get to know how what your boundaries are as well. How much can I give? How much should I say? And knowing the entire aromatherapy business world does not happen without getting out there. I think just sitting behind your books
Yeah, and
doesn't.
I like your reference to, it took a while to go through your ACP. It's going to take a while to have a self-sustaining business.
Exactly.
And I think that a lot of people I don't want to discourage anybody, but I do want to encourage realism. And you have to have a realistic sense for that. You need the time, you need the mental resources. I think you need as much support as possible to truly launch a business. If you want to do a hobby business, there is nothing wrong with that. But I think you need to be clear about what you're doing. If you want this to be your vocation, you need to be structured and disciplined, but flexible, because you may launch a product or a service and you may find that you don't get the response you had hoped for. You need to absorb the startup costs, which can be sometimes higher than we expect by the time, if you want to do this properly and get great insurance and have a good website and
Right.
all of the, all the things that go with it. My opinion is that you should also probably have blended for other people for at least a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that would be my next question. That is exactly my next question, is when do we know now how to get out and when to get out? But I also believe you're giving also support from your side if questions come up in terms of you're doing the whole coaching and personal mentoring as well, and you have had clients and you take them step by step through the way as well. Is that something you would do in case somebody comes up and has a question? What do I need to do next? And you could give suggestions there as well as a coach.
Yes, and I do it a little bit differently than some other people do. I know
Mm-hmm.
that there are very structured business coaching and business developing programs. I've been through some of them, and they are invaluable. What they don't do always is give you personal support. So, and they're not necessarily focused on an aromatherapist. And as an aromatherapist builds their business, knowledge gaps will pop up
Yeah.
in their blending and that's where those extra courses come in. You think, oh, I'll take all these courses and that'll cover all the knowledge gaps. No, I'm afraid it won't. I would love to say that it would, but you'll wear yourself out. So, I coach people as they're like in business basics and helping them get themselves out there and get an organized system so they don't burn out before they get out there.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it happened to me. I had
Mm-hmm.
to kind of sit back for a while. So we might help you build your structure, help you define your ideal client. I'm big on like printables and worksheets. I'm a kind of a journaling junkie, so that shows up a lot in what
But
I
it helps.
it helps. And I think handwriting, as opposed to sitting and typing and like getting into your whole body and what away from the computer, like away from the technology, is a big deal.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I think I do this actually with my pieces of paper as well. Is I really sit down on a Sunday to plan the next week. I sit
Mhm.
down at the end of the day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to just see what can I do the next week, the next day, and I think it is so invaluable to do this with a pen and a paper
Yep.
versus because we always get sidetracked on a computer as well.
Yeah,
I there's endless rabbit holes, but
I
that
know.
is another beautiful thing. And you're right, that it is nice to sit down and try to create a system for yourself which works for you. And
Yeah.
the courses give you, you're right, they give you a lot of knowledge, but it will not necessarily fit 100% your needs. And I think that's where actually a coach comes in as well, which is beautiful. And I've worked with one too, is they get you back on track. And the favorite quote from my coach was, "Shelve it, Katrine, not now."
You
And
have to know, well, it's like the plants. You have to know when not to put that plant in your garden, if at all, ever. And I also think that clients can come to me, not, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't always know what you need. And I'm not here to tell you what you need, but I can certainly see where we might need to head next. And so I don't have a prescribed, I'd love to offer, I wish it were this easy to offer a coaching program and say, okay, week 1, week 2, we're going to do this. I don't do it that way. And it's pretty, to be honest with you, it's a tough sell, but I feel better about it because I'm not here to sell. I'm here to help people get through these confidence blocks and help them see where they do want to get out there and where it really, really resonates with who you are. I've ended up in businesses that weren't right for me, and I wasn't effective there, and I wasn't. And you can find your place in aromatherapy, and you just never know where it's going to come from. My whole family is in technology, and I kept thinking I was in the wrong business. No, I can bring some of my technology geekery and help people out in this place. I love making printables, and there's like 20 or 30 in my head that are like on their
yeah,
out. But there's a place for all of you here, and it's a wide field. So I leave it open-ended because the questions can, maybe my client comes to me and they saw a client of their own and they have a dilution question or an essential oil question. I can pop in and answer that. And I can also help them develop better structure for their consults at the same time so that they're not, I think we've all been there. You meet your first client and you're going to make a custom blend and you try 5 or 6 versions of it. And the longer you go, you don't like it. They're sitting there waiting for you, or you're doing it on your own and you're more and more stressed out. Do you know what you're making per hour at that point? We have to support ourselves. We have to sustain ourselves. And so it's also, well, I went to music school, and a big part of musical training was fluency. And so I talk about fluency a lot. And in music school, we do drills to build our fluency. Do you have those scales under your fingers so that you can do them in your sleep? Why don't we have essential oil combinations in our noses so that we can understand how to put them together more quickly and more efficiently? It's very, very
yeah. Yeah, and I like the drill thing a little bit also. We know how drills can feel like sometimes, but we know at the end of the day, if we have done something over and over and over again, it comes much more fluent. So, and that I think is the same as well. I had a time period right after I graduated. I kept on looking at the competition. I just went out there and looked at every single competition and measured myself against it, forgetting that I just graduated. And I think that is one of these other rabbit holes, right?
Yes, it's a huge rabbit hole. And I just want to say it's totally normal. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Look at Facebook. It's built for that.
Yes.
and
Well, yeah, and the phones too, they ring as soon as you get a message. So it's built for
right.
attention over there. Yeah.
Right. It's a built-in comparison machine. I think that pretty much the whole internet is a built-in comparison machine. And my answer would be a couple things. We see everybody else's greatest hits, right? But we hear our own bloopers all the time. That's how the internet works. So I tell myself that, and I tell people just to remember that. I also know that the more work you do on knowing yourself, maybe emptying out a bit and quit cramming all the courses into your head just for a little while, digest some things, understand yourself, understand your passions, understand that ideal client who you want to support and as specifically as possible. And that comparison monster really kind of quiets down and goes away because it doesn't matter at that point. I also think that if you don't understand business and what you need to do to get to where you want to be, that it's easy to look at, like, compare ourselves so that we know, okay, that person's giving me a template. I don't think that's the best way to go because they've gone through their own process and we need to go through ours. And there's no way to internalize that learning unless we do it ourselves. And you will need to use that learning every time you go to develop a new service or a new product or a new formulation. So you're really cheating yourself by comparing.
Yeah. So what would you suggest right now if somebody, when do I know it's the right time to go out, or when I'm actually procrastinating still? So there's the time when, how do I distinguish this? I have to do this. That's what I tell sometimes myself. Oh, I still have to do this before I can do this. And then sometimes I catch myself as well. And then it's like, oh no, Katrine, you're just procrastinating right now because you're afraid to go out. And it's maybe a little bit of the same question is like, when do I really know how or when to get out into the business world? But I feel like there's a distinction between I have to do this and I have to learn this, or here I am, I'm procrastinating right now. And do you know what I mean, or is that?
I do. It's a feeling, that I'm familiar with and I see a lot. And I don't think that there is an answer. And honestly, it's a little existential, but that's my answer. There is no time when you go, okay, it's like getting married. When do you know you should get married?
Right. Or get a baby, right? When is it right?
When are you 100% certain on anything?
Yes,
And
yeah,
so
it's true.
I would go back to, does this feel like a push or does it feel like a pull? And a push isn't, yes, we all have to be pushed and pay our taxes and do the yucky things like that. But if our shoulds are in the push category, not every aspect of business is fun, but if the overall umbrella is feeling like a push, then it's time to maybe sit back and evaluate, again, revisit, is this service or product that I'm offering, is this really speak to my soul? Is this what I'm feeling really called to do? If not, take your time because you don't want to go down a path too far. Having said that, I think there's always a way that you can get out there, and you can just start small. And I think that solves a lot of these concerns. It, gets you practice in getting yourself out there. It helps you understand what it is you're most passionate about. That's really the only way to find out, is to just kind of like dip a toe in a little bit. And so if you're more interested in teaching, maybe out of your ACP is a little bit too soon, but write some blog posts that are at your level. Like, see what comes out. You don't know what's going. They change as you write them. Writing changes as you write it. Go live. After you've gone live a few times, like whether it's an Instagram live or a Facebook live, set up your business page. Invite a Q&A. That's a great way to find out if you're ready. You will know if you're not.
Asking questions is a really, really good way to get yourself out there and see what's coming back.
Yeah. And if you want to be a practitioner, blend daily and use the world as your input. Is there a celebrity that has come out and announced that they have an issue, and who are they as a person? What you've read from interviews, make a blend for them. Use on it. I mean, don't send it them, but
why not, right? You could.
But use that as inspiration. Use a poem as inspiration.
Oh, that is nice. Yeah, no, I like the idea. It's like somebody else maybe has something, even so you can't reach them, but pretend you would be. So blending, you would say, just to wrap things up a little bit, but you would say basically get yourself out there without baby steps out there.
Find your edge. Anybody who exercises or does yoga or anything understands the concept of an edge, and it's a great. I think business is one of the ultimate spiritual practices, and you learn where your edge is and where it feels too scary and where it's good scary and bad scary, and do it in baby steps. Get feedback. It's a mirror to what you're doing, and then you don't have time to compare yourself to somebody else, really.
No, it's true. So ways to get yourself out there, as you just suggested, just, asking your friend circle, but also if you see somebody you heard, maybe do a blend. I just had it actually yesterday. The surf teacher of my son, he sprained his fingers, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to make him a blend. And he can, even if it's just a small sample, but at least it keeps you blending, it gets yourself out there. And who knows what can happen next? You never know who sees you, who hears from you, or there's always, but if you stay behind your computer and behind your books and you don't get yourself out, then nobody will ever get to notice you as well.
Yes. And if you think that you need to hide behind your computer until you are bulletproof and until your blends are absolutely perfect, I can assure you that just last week I created a really unpleasant smelling blend. And photographers take thousands of photos.
So
That's
true.
the way this works. And the more you do it, the more you get comfortable. You have to build discomfort into your comfort. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and putting yourself out there. That is part of this path. It is hard work, but the payoff is absolutely worth it.
I totally agree. It's very true. I'm going to look one more time at the comments here. I see them more successful. Okay. Jackie said, I think we only see what social media shows us. So there may be many successful practitioners who are too busy to be on social media. That could be true too.
Could be.
There's a lot of pressure, Tracy says. Thank you for addressing my comment. Social media equals Oprah syndrome.
Yeah. Yep.
Agree, so true. I took my ACP with Sheila. She was great. And then Jackie said, love Sheila. Sheila, I guess, or Sheila, I'm not sure. But yeah, so thank you for the questions as well. And the comments, Tracy and Jackie, and there's one person, there's no name attached to it, but thanks for being part of this.
I have time to ask a couple questions if there are any floating around out there.
Yeah, so if there are more questions, let us know. I'm going to look quickly over here as well while we are live. And
I also have the pressure to blend for other people and to get it perfect. Remember that you are in the aromatherapy bubble and they are not. And yes, we need to follow safety guidelines and make sure that it hits their resonant sweet spot. But we are swimming in a very different world inside our heads about the essential oils than they are. And there have been so many times that I really didn't think I had hit the mark for somebody, and they thought it was the best thing ever. And it supported them deeply in ways I couldn't have predicted. Wow. So allow that space. I think that our work, at least on the creative, yes, we have therapeutic concerns to address, but on the higher, the creative aspect, it's kind of like artwork where there's a gray zone between our creation and the person using the blend. And in that gray space is where the magic really happens.
It's true. Yeah. So leaving space for anything unexpected as well.
It may guide what you do with that person next.
Yeah, it's so true. But also not always hop on the next shiny thing which might come our way. And that is another little syndrome I had for a while too. It's like things were popping up. It seemed like, at least, and I kept on jumping on each of them, and I was fully exhausted. At one point, I didn't embrace anything. At the other point, I embraced everything. And then both of these things are equally discouraging.
Yeah. And my policy is one class in, one writing or service or new thing out. It's like when I clean out my closet. I don't bring in a new garment until I've donated one or two.
That is a really, really good thing. Yes, exactly. Because you do want to have, you need to produce. I mean, if you're investing, you need to see the results. And if you're not testing the results of your investment, well, you would never know, right? You never leave bad stocks in the stock market if they go down, 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 and you're wasting all your money. So that is a good thing too.
You're planting seeds, but you have to nurture them and you have to harvest them as well. And if you're not doing that, like, you have to internalize everything that you're learning, or else, honestly, to be quite direct, you may as well not.
Yeah, true. No, very true. I think Tracy said one more thing. That's an excellent idea. I just got survey results from an organization around my niche. I love this idea. I will make the blend to help and share on social media. Thank you so much. So I guess that was the suggestion about getting out there, taking taking maybe a small little nugget from somewhere and
Yes.
create a blend and get it out there. So
yeah. And may I make just one suggestion on the social media? This is something a lot of people don't know about. When you share a blend, you'll want to make sure that your liability insurance covers sharing blends on social media. There are some insurers that do and some that don't. And I think it's a better safe than sorry topic here. But there are insurers that will tell you, well, if somebody uses that blend and then they burn their skin or have a sensitivity reaction, then they could hypothetically,
yes, be
so
sued or something. So that
yeah.
is a good point, especially around the market is getting really hot or has been getting hot over years now with the essential oils. And I just actually looked today at the FCA, I believe it was, where all the advertisement claims came in and they're sending out these notes. So
Mhm.
they have over 91 currently where they do contact the companies to call them back as well. So we do have to be careful what we
We
put
do.
out there.
We do.
And that is another good thing. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were here today, Jackie says, because I was debating between two classes that were similar. Is there a company you can point to for that in terms of insurance? I'm in Europe, so I'm not sure. I think, Jackie, you're in the US as far as I know. Is there anyone you know, or maybe we can also let Jackie know later if
I encourage people to call around. I wouldn't want to speak for an insurance company myself because it also depends on the nature of your business, what you want to talk about with your clients. I mean, retail versus consulting versus teaching, you need to look at different kinds of liability, and it really needs to be all in a package rather than maybe focusing on one thing. I know we all want to share our blends, and I certainly don't want to discourage anybody from doing that, but have a conversation with multiple insurance companies. And I think that they're listed very clearly, whether the AIA or NAHA lists some, and see what they
Oh,
have.
good. Yes, yes. So they could go over there. Yeah, great. No, I think this is, yeah, Jackie says yes. Great. Well, this was just so lovely. And that was our very first chat here today. And I hope some people get something out of it. It's really, I think what we're trying to do, we are really here right now to, first of all, get this community together and to maybe get yourself out there, just tickle some people out there. And it's great to see comments coming in, and as well that we might be able to help on some level here.
Yeah.
I also posted a beautiful downloadable printable PDF from Michelle in the notes, but I will again post it below in the comments as well, which is really helpful. It's oh my God, I was just reading the comments and I was talking at the same time. But I'm sorry. So yeah, no, I will post the link again one more time to the substitution chart or the substitution PDF Michelle created. It's really beautiful. I got it myself, and it's a printout and some beautiful hints as well in your emails as well, which I thought were super helpful. So I'm going to post this one more time in the comments, but it is also on the top of the section here where we all went live on. So I really want to thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for taking the time. You have always a full schedule, I know that. So I'm going to let you go back to that. And do you have any closing words you would like to mention?
Not off the top of my head. I'm glad that we got to cover some of these topics. I know that it can be controversial to discuss hitting pause on education. Keep going. If something really lights you up and you really, really want to educate yourself, just find your balance in what you're taking in and what you're putting out, because we're doing this to make the community better, and you do have to contribute.
Yeah, exactly. True. And Innocentia said hi from Malta. So
Oh,
hello, hello. Yeah. So we're closing up, but the video will be available, and it can be streamed at any time. So if you have any questions, please mention them still in the comments below. I think we will discuss further lives after the call next week probably, and then we will see you hopefully again. So thank you, everyone.
Thank
and
you.
then have a wonderful.
It's nice chatting with all of you.
Yeah, nice chatting with you, Michelle.
Bye,
Bye-bye. Ciao.
everybody.
Bye.